Now that we have a state that we can subscribe to, I'm going to go ahead and introduce another component that subscribes to this state. So how about we display the current timestamp and make it tick every second? So I'll go ahead and do that. Let's add a new component here. We'll call this component timestamp.js. And it's a regular class component, and I'm going to call it timestamp. So we can actually subscribe to the state directly here, or we can pass the time to the component as a prop. I'm going to go ahead and pass the time to this component as a prop. So basically in the app component, we will import timestamp, and I'm going to include it here right before the search bar. And this component is going to receive the timestamp value. So basically it will have a timestamp value that it's going to read from the state. So this dot state dot timestamp. And we'll just go ahead and render this timestamp in the timestamp component. So in here, we'll just render it in a div. So render this dot props dot timestamp. Now, I don't have a timestamp property on the state, so that's something that I need to initialize, and we'll initialize it in the store. So in the store in here, we need a timestamp property, and we can initialize it with new date. And I think we can test that. So refresh, and looks like I have an error. So what's going on here? So objects are not valid as React child. That's because we rendered the timestamp here directly. We can toString that, and I think that will work. So let's go ahead and test that. And I have the timestamp. Of course, the timestamp is not ticking because I didn't change it on the state. So we'll do that next. So we can do that in the store itself. Basically, in here, we can set interval, and inside the set interval, we'll do something every 1 second. And in here, it will just do this dot merge with state, a new timestamp object that is basically a new date, just like that. And I think that should work. So let's go ahead and test that. And it looks like the time is ticking right there. Now, I'm getting a warning here. React attempted to reuse markup, which tells me that the server rendered output is different than the client rendered output. And let's think about that. So we have a new date, and then the interval is going to kick and change that. So basically, this is probably happening before the component mounts, and the component mounts with a different value. So to solve this problem, instead of doing this in the constructor, we can do it in component did mount. So let's do an action here in the store and call this action something like start clock. And this is going to basically do exactly that. Let me format that. And we'll just call this start clock action from the app component did mount. So on component did mount, after we subscribe to the store, we're going to do this.props.store.start clock. So let's go ahead and test that now. So now my app is ticking and I don't have the problem with the checksum here. Cool. So the reason I started a timestamp timer here is that in the next module, we're going to talk about the performance a little bit. And we're going to see how putting things on the state is going to affect the performance of the React application.